Oh my god, the 90s.
Oh, the 90s indeed. And yes, this is apparently my best 90s costume. Despite living through that era, I apparently don't have the clothes anymore. That shirt has really bad anguish on the background, the back of it as well. I've tried to take it out, I've tried to pull out the stitching, but it just did not work. I'm not starting this wrong. Hello, IkiFoo here. Decided I'd do a commentary on this episode, which will include factoids and tidbits, I hope. But it's mostly going to be me talking about all the problems I had making this and all-out bitch fest. Which I'll start off by saying what went right. This was the first episode I put together in Adobe Premiere Pro CS6. God, that's an awkward name. And once you get used to the interface of it, it just works a lot better. I haven't found anything that I've missed from CS 5.5. That is what I was using before. And there's just a number of advantages to the upgrade. The old versions would stop playback if you did anything. Any changes to the timeline, any adjustments other than the sound levels, moving focus away from that program. Okay, to be fair, I think you might have been able to turn that off. But be able to cut out something before reaching it in playback, it just feels like some kind of weird voodoo magic. It's quite handy. Also seems to handle memory much better. In 5.5, I really had to limit the number of sequences I had open at any one time. If you don't know, a sequence is basically a timeline which you can put into an object and then put that in another timeline, so you can condense a wee animation or a little segment and just add it to another timeline very easily. In fact, for the final version, I split up the whole thing to like 10 sections or so, which is based on how they're laid out in paragraphs in the script, and then put all those sequences into one timeline, well, into one sequence, which is also a timeline. Are you following this? I'm really not. It's very handy if you've got a complicated animation and you don't want to deal with 10 video tracks at once. And this is the big one. It handles footage from Fraps natively. Fraps is a video capture program for DirectX and OpenGL programs. Before CS6, I had to convert it into another format so that Premiere would actually recognise it. Now I can just capture it and shove it in. It saves me time, it saves me a lot of disk space. That may be because I insisted on using a lossless codec to convert them. I still regret not doing that for something like the Orion Conspiracy and Fable, because you lose a lot of that detail that SVGA gives you, which was probably the best thing about both of those games. Overall, just made things a lot easier. It just feels a lot more responsive, and the Frap support saves me a bunch of time. Probably unrelated, I also switched to Windows 8 at this point. Okay, put down the pitchfork because I was curious. It seems to be working out. I mean, once you figure out where things are, again, as compared to CS6, things work out pretty well. And basically, this is always the case with a new version of Windows. It's like, oh, it's unnecessary, they're changing things that don't need to be changed. That's been going on since Windows 95. Then again, anything from Windows 3.1 was an upgrade. I'm not sold on the apps, like the sort of full screen thing. I don't see the appeal behind a program that either takes 100% of the screen or about an eighth of it if you snap it to one side. I might feel differently if I had a Surface Pro, mind you. But, yeah, almost everything that I quote-unquote upgraded this time worked out pretty nicely. And sad to say, that's where the positive section of the commentary ends. Let's see. I used roughly the same setup as I did for the Gabriel Knight review, which somehow was much easier to make. Apart from that one time I cut out where the stack of books fell over. And when I got a case of rampant hiccups. If you're wondering why everything is so choppy at the final section of the video where I'm on camera, it's because I was basically getting a massive hiccup every time I finished a line. Sometimes not even when I finished a line, sometimes right in the bloody middle of it. So the big changes I made for Gabe Knight was I switched from Microsoft LifeCam, which is it's a webcam, easiest way to say it, webcam. Changed from the webcam to recording myself using my phone. Oh, that 3D effect is embarrassing. Samsung Galaxy Nexus, if you're asking. LifeCam wasn't too bad, but it could not handle 720p at any decent frame rate. I don't know if it was the camera or my PC or the USB connection that bottlenecked it, but the frame rate was just not good enough for the tiny amount of extra definition it provided. Not that the phone camera has fantastic definition, but it's still 720p at 30 frames a second. I've been sticking with 960 by 544 because the footage I'd used was like 480p. I would never record anything that was in 720p by a long shot. So I didn't think it was a big deal to have HD videos. Maybe that's another difference between Premiere CS6 as well, because I'd tested out the HD rendering beforehand in 5.5. It didn't seem particularly worth it. I could see the difference. HD rendering seems to take a lot less time than it used to, which is great. I don't know if that's me rendering it differently or if it's actually just CS6. So there's basically no reason for me not to render in HD. The upscaling it does to the game footage looks really pretty good, I think. The upscaling it does to my ugly mug, however, minimal difference. If you remember the Games What I Played in 2012 video, well, first of all, sorry, and secondly, the whole video was basically an experiment to see if I could do a vlog and if I could render a video in HD. One of those turned out to be successful, and in fact I'm still curious as to whether or not I should redo the 2012 video in the sort of cut-up style of the 2011 one, which I'm much more happy with. So far only one person has passed comment on that, despite my asking, and they said you can't really delete the old one. I see what she means. I never want to be one of those people who keeps redoing their old work. Cough, irate gamer, cough. I wondered if that magnet joke was worth it. It was funny to me, I just wanted to shout at something. But yeah, the 2012 video has fuck all views for a reason. Even I can't watch my ass drone on for that long. I tried. 10 minutes in, it's just like, I can't fucking listen to myself anymore. Granted, I'm a lot more harsh on my own voice than some people. Okay, I've not even talked about this review or even this game yet. Ugh, sidetracked it. Fuck yeah. As I said, Gabriel Knight Review had this new setup of me using my phone for shooting video myself and my shiny ass microphone to record sound separately. I've had that mic since Broken Sword 2, I believe. Whether or not I knew how to use it properly is a complete and utter different question. I'd used Virtual Dub to record both audio and video at the same time, and my computer hated me for it. If I hadn't added any correction to this audio, you'd be hearing it in the background. It's loud. It's like it's about to take off, kind of loud. What I'd purchased in between the Fable and Gabriel Knight reviews was a netbook, the Dell Mini 9, which turned out to be very good for recording audio. Because my old videos have that whining sound because of the laptop fans. Oh, but that's just your voice. That's because I use my main laptop to record the audio. I have a desktop too, but the laptop gets louder when it has more work to do. The desktop has the same constant fan noise no matter what. Not better. So whilst my laptop sounds like it's about to take off, the Dell Mini 9 is completely silent. A very good thing for audio recording. This all worked perfectly for the Gabriel Knight review. No problems. Did it as easy as any other review I've done. It turned out great. Well, kind of dark, but in terms of the production process, it was solid. Besides, do you really want to see my face that much? Yeah, I'm just going to go over this again. We'll play the review through again. I might even talk about it. You never know. Fast forward to the Urban Runner review, and I'm suddenly having a bunch of problems. So we'll play this again. Yeah. So, first thing that happened when trying to do this review was the Android app I was using to record video would crash with no output. Just after about 10 minutes. I tried freeing up some space on the device. Didn't help. Tried reducing the audio quality since I was recording that separately anyway. Didn't help. I think the problem ended up being that I set the bitrate too high. Apparently I just left it on default for Gabriel Knight. Because once I reduced that, it seemed to record okay. I mean, I was still recording only 10 minutes of material at a time out of sheer paranoia. But, when you have to reshoot the same footage of yourself 5 separate times, you kind of take what you end up with. Which is a big pain in the ass, because I have to shoot it all at once to keep the lighting consistent. Except by about the 3rd time I said, fuck it, and reshot it on a different day anyway. If you're paying attention round about the middle of the video, the shots go very dark, and the reason I had to reshoot that footage was because the sound stopped recording. 2 video files of about 10 minutes, and the first file had half the audio missing. And I couldn't use the phone camera audio. Even if I'd not turned the quality down on that, in a zealous attempt to save disk space and CPU cycles, it was just not going to be good enough. So a reshoot it was. I think it was because the netbook I used to record audio has an SSD. It had this problem, well it still kind of has this problem, where it would freeze for a few minutes when it was just deciding I had to do something. I think it turned out the drive was misaligned, which seems to be an issue only happens with SSDs. I fixed that, it helped a lot, but I think it's still in IDE mode, which is wrong. So it'll still freeze a little sometimes. So for the bits I had to reshoot, it was because the audio file was repeating this 1 second loop over and over. That's never happened to me in Audacity, and I've been using that probably since Broken Sword 2. Anyway, kept reshooting, and eventually I just got lucky enough to get all the shots I wanted. I'm slightly afraid for how the next one's going to turn out. So, after all these shenanigans, each and every one of these shenanigans, I had to record footage of the game. What I usually use is DOSBox's built-in video capture, and that uses the ZMBV codec. Adobe doesn't recognise that, so I have to convert it, which is a shame because ZMBV spits out nice small files with pretty damn good quality. That changed slightly for Gabriel Knight because with the GOG version of the game the music is set to be played on a Roland device as opposed to a Sound Blaster or a Gravis Sound, and for some reason Roland Audio would not record on DOSBox's native video capture. So I used Fraps instead and that handled it fine. I still had to convert the footage because this was still CS 5.5, but that was fine. Roll around to Urban Runner and I started using ScumVM instead because, well, number one, I'm surprised this was supported. I didn't think they really did DefMV games. But if it fits the criteria for Point and Quickie, I suppose it fits the criteria for ScumVM too. Load up Fraps, load up ScumVM, no dice. I meant to see a frame rate counter on the ScumVM screen, nothing. It turns out ScumVM uses SDL, which is not picked up by Fraps. You can add a parameter to the ScumVM startup, which sets an SDL parameter telling you to use DirectX. Fraps then picks it up. Tried that, Fraps picked it up, happy days. Record a quick test, load up the video, and it's stuttery as hell. Turns out it would only record if there was movement on the screen, which means when I'm recording cutscenes, if you saw me recording the cutscenes, I was moving my mouse around in a circle like a complete idiot so that it would still actually pick up any differences. It's also why that inventory stuff was static images. I did finally manage to get some consistent footage from Hypercam, but that doesn't record the audio output of your machine, and I couldn't be arsed finding something that would add a stereo mix device to my playback devices. So I'm getting something of a combination of the two. There's probably a quality difference, but I couldn't see it. And then I do my trademark forget to record an entire fucking paragraph of the script move. And I only noticed this a couple of days before it was due up, because I was doing the captions for it, which I've still not done. Wrist slap, bad me. And I noticed I had to go back to the script to double check something, and there it was, an entire paragraph that I'd forgotten to record. I need to make a fucking checklist or something. I even had more to say about this game, but, I've limited myself to 10 minutes, what are you going to do? I was considering doing a full-length review, but I didn't have quite enough for that, I think. Or so that I just wouldn't be padding it out by making fun of the plot. I also considered doing a riff on it, but as I said in the review, it's preferable for the game to have actual dialogue for that kind of thing. I think the 2012 games vlog proved I'm not very good at improvising. So if I try a riff, it's gonna be on something else. Unfortunately, I've been staring at the same script so long that I've forgotten what those funny extra lines were. There's a clip I really wanted to include that I just didn't get around to it. It's when you sneak a peek at the hotel register, which is why the bin you're about to see is on fire in the first place, is to get the receptionist out of the way. I think there was better ways, which is why I make the comment of, did I really have to set a bin on fire? It's a normal voiceover, like you get in the game, except it's not the same actor. So there's this one clip in the middle of the game where the main character is voiced by someone else. You see what I'm saying about cheap production values? I suppose I might have been harsher on the game if I'd had to keep switching discs, but ScumVM takes care of all that. You just dump the files from all the CDs in one folder, and it just works. I do like that program, even if it was particularly bad for me trying to record stuff. I could talk about some of the more interesting puzzles in there. There's the drain one, obviously, that you were just seeing. Obviously, I'm about to spoil the solution, by the way. To make the valve work, you need to know what it's set to, so you need the instruction manual. That's hidden in the dumbwaiter, but you need the key combination to make it work. To get the key combination, you have to check the fuse box near where you entered, and to use any of these, you need to put the fuse in the right socket, so that the power will go to the dumbwaiter, or the fuse box lights, or the entirely mechanical valve. That still doesn't make sense to me. It sounds like a needlessly compounded problem when I explain it, but I thought it was interesting. It was just like, okay, there's that, okay, so I need to do that, so I need to go there, so I need to do that. It's kind of obvious when you've got all these places that the fuse can actually go, so you're just like, okay, we'll do that, we'll go over there, and let's see how that goes. Fuck it, I'll go back to that. This, oh, I don't even know why that was there. Maybe they were just so desperate to use that extra footage that makes Ada look like she's being molested. She does. She's not into having her face touched. That's, if you didn't have a dialogue or any context, that is what you would take away from it. It's what else? There's one where you have to work out a keypad code by matching the noises the buttons make to a bird song outside. But the bird doesn't do an exact impression, if you know what I mean, so that's a bit taxing. It's very screechy, and when you play it multiple times, it sort of starts to make your teeth vibrate in a very terrible way. Oh! There's a card schematic puzzle, which is essentially a jigsaw. And that one's funny because Ada picks it up, but you're meant to solve it later when you're controlling the guy, Max. So if you go to solve it, you get a voiceover from Max. I'm sure I mentioned something about the production values of that game. It's not coming to me. Plus, I realise this might be ScumVM fucking it up, but if you pick up a tile and you put it back down, your cursor disappears. It's still there, but it's just invisible. Finally got someone asking about that light gun in the background. It's about time. Just saying. So, yeah, there was a bunch of other things that I could have taken the piss out of, but, nah, it was just... It wasn't going to be enough for a full review. So it just didn't seem worth it. Stick it in Point and Quickie. Get it done. Get another one ticked off the list. I actually think this is funnier than most of my usual reviews because it just takes a bit more time to take the piss out of stuff, so I'm quite like this one despite how much effort I had to put in to get it out. And then I still got it finished early apart from that one hiccup with not remembering to record an entire paragraph of the script. Stupid me. But now that I've got my setup kind of perfected, hopefully the next one will be a lot less hassle. And let me tell you, the next game I'm doing is a lot better. See you on the first, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.